Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Flashback, Ben, back at the formerly captured hospital. Colonel Maggie called George back and ordered, "George, make sure you do whatever it takes to keep that prisoner alive." George relayed the command to me, and I said, "Fine with me." And I promptly tied the scumsucker to one of the support columns in the hospital. Then I explained, "Now he can't jump out a window." George asked, "Do you think we should remove the taser probes?" I shocked of our prisoner, and he passed out again. I grinned at George and asked, "You mean those taser probes?" "Hell no, we shouldn't remove them. If he starts shouting for the other scumsuckers to help him, I want to be able to shut his butt up." Then I opened his mouth and began to check his teeth with my Leatherman to make sure he didn't have a suicide pill. George began to complain, "Ben, sometimes you're an inhuman." I interrupted his tirade. "George, if you are going to call me inhuman, look first at what the scumsuckers have been doing to the children. Once you figure that out, come and talk to me about inhuman." I handed the taser to George and said, "If he starts shouting, I would shock out of him. The last thing we want is for the scumsuckers to mount a major offensive to rescue his worthless butt." I head up to the roof just in time to see my improvised sniper team at work. I walked up and praised them. "You guys are doing a hell of a job." The sniper manning the M107 asked, "Sergeant, can I take out some longer-range targets?" I slapped him on the shoulder and said, "Go for it." Then I remembered the fire mission George needed to call in, so I headed downstairs. He was on the horn again with Colonel Maggie, and I waited until he finished. He turned to me and said, "HQ is sending some civilians to interrogate the prisoner." I grinned at George and said, "George, out here civilian is slang for CIA. Our prisoner is in for a world of hurt." George asked, "What do you mean?" I said, "You complained about me and the Geneva Convention. Well, that convention will be totally gone when they arrive. They are going to torture out of him until he talks or dies." I pointed to the building the corporal told me about and mentioned the fire mission. "George, we're damn sure that building is where the scumsucker was building his suicide vests. I would suggest we call in a fire mission on it. Hell, while you're at it, level the entire block." George figured out the coordinates on his map and called in the fire mission. The first rounds obviously hit some ordnance because the sky lit up like the 4th of July. It didn't take long until the whole block was leveled. I heard rifles on the roof and noticed my improvised sniper team was busy taking out the trash, leaving the area of the leveled buildings. The corporal whose nose I messed up came up and reported, "Sergeant, I am pleased to announce we now have main and backup power to the hospital." I praised him. "Hell of a job, and you didn't electrocute yourself. So if the main power goes down," he interrupted, "the backup generators will kick in." I found the coffee maker that Colonel Maggie sent, plugged it into a wall outlet, poured some fresh water in it, and asked, "Does anyone have any real coffee?" I didn't get an answer, so I figured the answer was no. I started the coffee pot anyway just to heat the water, and when it was done, I made some instant coffee from the MREs. Flashback, Jack, the next morning. I made it to Colonel Maggie's office. She was already busy as hell on the phone, so I began to file paperwork. She looked up and said, "Jack, you aren't going to believe this, but they are sending CIA agents to interrogate the prisoner." I shrugged my shoulder and replied, "Yeah, I sort of expected it. If the scumsucker is from Britain, they will want to get every shred of information out of him they can." I thought for a moment and added, "You might want to call and have a little talk with Ben since he doesn't play well with CIA agents." Colonel Maggie asked, "Why's that?" I simply stated the truth. We've both been screwed over by them a couple of times. You know, things like sending us on a mission for them and forgetting to extract us. Colonel Maggie said in horror, "I had no idea." I replied, "Of course you don't. Those missions will never make it to our files." Colonel Maggie asked, "And the agents?" I replied, "Let's just say they never went home." Colonel Maggie got on the horn and began to talk to Ben while John walked in with 2 plates of food. This time it was pancakes, sausage, and eggs. I dug into mine. Then Colonel Maggie waved me over, put her hand over the receiver, and ordered, "Jack, see if you can talk some sense into Sergeant Blaine. He won't listen to me." I began to talk, and Ben laughed. "Damn, Jack, it's good to hear your voice. How's Masha doing?" I replied, "Ben, I can't talk about that right now. Colonel Maggie is worried you're going to take out the CIA agents when they show up." Ben laughed and said, "Tell her to send us some real coffee, and I will leave them alone." Then he told me the truth, his voice dripping with hatred. "Jack, I can't wait for them to get here and torture out of this scumsucker." I laughed and said, "Ben, I will tell her that. Now I'm going to enjoy my pancakes, sausage, and eggs." Ben swore, "You son of a..." I hung up the phone on him, looked at Colonel Maggie and said, "Ben said if you send him some coffee on the next shipment, he won't kill the CIA agents." Colonel Maggie complained, "Sergeant Reynolds, that's extortion." I smiled at her and asked, How much is it going to cost to send a couple bags of coffee to keep him happy? She replied, almost nothing at all. Hell, I will make sure it's on the ride with the CIA agents. I replied, a very wise move, sir. Ben can get cantankerous if he doesn't get his coffee. I continued to eat my breakfast. Colonel Maggie started eating hers and praised John. Hell of a breakfast today, John. If you keep this up, I might have to start doing PT. I grinned at Colonel Maggie. She glared at me and warned, not a single word from you, Jack. Flashback, Masha, another day with Tina. Breakfast was over and Louise finally confessed, Masha, I never realized how serious a problem sugar addiction was until I watched Tina this morning. I smiled at Louise and said, most people don't notice the problem, and it is so entrenched in the American culture it's hard to avoid. For example, look at your behavior yesterday. You were tired and thirsty, so you had a soda. Did you know they actually add salt to soda, so when you drink it, it does not really quench your thirst? Louise said, I didn't realize that they are sneaky and manipulative. I replied, they certainly are. All the food industry cares about is how many dollars it makes. And if it can trick the American people into eating more food, they will do it. That is why America has the second highest incidence of obesity in the world. Louise blinked and said, I thought we were in first place. I informed her, no, Mexico has surpassed America in percentage of obese population, and it's caused from the export of soda to Mexico. In many places in Mexico, it's cheaper and safer to drink soda than the water. They are fighting back and have passed a special tax on soda, but there is a problem with the special tax. Louise asked, what's the problem? I smiled and replied, as with most special taxes, the people who are affected the most are the poor. Since they can no longer afford to buy soda, they have been forced to drink the water, and now many of them are getting sick from the poor quality of the water. Tina came over and shook her high chair. I looked at Louise and said, I think she is finally hungry. I picked her up, put her in the high chair, took the bowl of yogurt, and set it in front of her. She grabbed the bowl, so I quickly snatched it out of her hands, grinned at Louise and said, that was a close one. I believe she's not hungry enough yet. Brenda came out of the bathroom and said, Tina's in the high chair, did she eat? Louise replied, not yet. Masha tried to feed her, but Tina was going to throw the bowl again. Brenda asked, Masha, aren't you worried about Tina not eating? I looked at Tina and replied, not really. She could probably stand to lose a little weight. Brenda unfortunately laughed and said, yes, like mother, like daughter. I briefly thought about confronting Brenda about her own sugar addiction, but decided now was not the time. It was better to fight only one battle at a time, my battle with Tina. Flashback, Jennifer at home. As I thought about Grandma, it was like I could see her. Her face was full of love as she stood over me. I began to feel sleepy. The next thing I knew, Daniela had touched my shoulder and said, Miss Jennifer, your breakfast is ready. I got up and followed her downstairs when the excrement hit the fan. Mother had taken a different plate and removed most of the food Daniela had placed on my plate. All that was left on my plate was a fried egg and a piece of dry toast. Daniela asked, Senora Donaldson, why did you remove food from Ms. Jennifer's plate? Mother complained, Daniela, Jennifer is a prima ballerina, and because of that we must limit her weight. You need to make less food, not only for her, but for this whole family. I wasn't going to listen to the coming fight, so I grabbed my plate off the table and ran upstairs to my room. I was hungry as heck, so I scarfed down the egg and toast, and then pulled some of the food Daniela had packed in my bag and began to eat it. There was a knock on the door, so I quickly hid the food and asked, who is it? Daddy replied, it's me, can I come in? He walked into the room. I pulled the food out from under my pillow and continued to eat it. Daddy said, it's like WWII in the kitchen. I complained, Daddy, if this keeps up, please send me to a different military school. Daddy said, Jennifer, I have an idea. Follow me downstairs. I obeyed Daddy. He ignored the fight as he walked past it, picked up the phone in the kitchen and pretended to dial a number. He loudly said, hello, this is General Donaldson. I would like to speak with someone about enrolling my daughter in your school. The kitchen became deathly quiet and Mother demanded, Glenn, what the hell are you doing? Daddy put his hand over the mouthpiece of the phone and said, Jennifer said if you two are going to fight all the time, she wanted to go back to a military school. So I'm honoring her wish. Mother complained, Glenn, you will do nothing of that sort. I chimed in, yes, Mother. I have decided since you and Daniela are fighting so much about my food that I need to be out of the house, so you won't fight. Daddy continued with his ruse. Yes, we can bring her by later today. Mother apologized. Jennifer, please don't leave. Remember what happened last time? I complained. Heck, even if the new school is as bad as the last school, being away from the fighting would make it worth it. Daniela said, Senorita Jennifer, please do not go away again. Your mother and I can work out our differences. Mother too easily agreed. Yes, Jennifer, we won't fight anymore. Daddy said into the non-existent phone call, no, don't expect us today. I will call again if we change our minds. I looked at both of them and threatened, if you two fight one more time about my food, I will leave. Now, Daniela, could I please have a little more food? The egg and slice of toast wasn't enough. Mother complained, Jennifer, if you gain weight. I interrupted her. Mother, Olga says that my weight is fine for my height. If you don't believe me, you can call her. Daddy motioned to the phone and reinforced my story. Jennifer is correct. I heard Olga tell her almost those exact words. I said, Mother, I sure as heck don't want to get fat, so therefore I won't. But I also don't want to starve. Daniela always gives me too much food, but I only eat enough to satisfy my hunger. Daniela agreed. Yes, Senora Donaldson, both Senor Donaldson and Senorita Jennifer always leave food on their plates. Mother asked, well, what do you do with the leftover food? I hope you don't waste it. Daniela smiled and said, no, Senora Donaldson, I do not waste any food. Many times I include it in their lunches, other times I add it to the soups that I make. Mother commanded, Jennifer, when you're finished eating, we need to weigh you, and then you need to practice ballet. I complained, Mother, we will not weigh me when I'm finished eating. If you want to weigh me, it needs to be the first thing in the morning before I eat. Then I started a new battle when I announced, by the way, Mother, I'm not sure I want you managing my ballet career. Thank God the doorbell rang. Flashback, Alexei at the house. I changed into new clothes. Father came into my room and I couldn't resist when I asked, Father, what was Mother doing with the orderlies? Father looked hurt and replied, Alexei, she was exercising with them. I continued with the questions. When will Mother come back home with us? Father shook his head and shocked me when he said, Alexei, I'm not sure she will ever return. In fact, we might not go back to the laboratory ourselves. I asked, but what about the experiments on me? Father confessed, Alexei, after all that happened with Chow Mein and your mother, we might need to cancel the experiments. I asked, forever? Father said, yes, forever. Now come on, Alexei, we need to go get some food to eat. We went out for dinner, and I couldn't help wonder what my life was now going to be like. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. With my sister Mira mostly inebriated from the vodka we had liberated, I asked her, Mira, how are your senses? Mira giggled, and I had procured my answer. I cleansed the area carefully and began to suture my sister's wound. Mira continued to giggle the whole time, and then began to unfortunately sing in a very off-key, inebriated voice. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? I scolded, of course I will sleep with you tonight, if for no other reason than to make sure you do not damage my excellent sutures. Mira giggled and continued with the song while I tried to shush her, a task tainted with the impossible. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. We arrived back at my new house and Gail signed. Did I see something being signed about clothes shopping? I signed. Of course you did, you little brat. Let me give Maria some money, and you two need to go clothes shopping. I peeled of what I thought was more than enough money and handed it to Maria. She and Gail left with Roberto while I went to work in the panic room. I was trying to build a nice gun rack in the panic room, but wasn't having much luck. I didn't think I wasted much time, but in hindsight, perhaps I did. I heard the doorbell ring, so I went downstairs and checked. It was Maria, Gail, and an overly burdened Roberto. I let them in, and Roberto complained, please don't ever make me go shopping with them again. I smiled and agreed. Maria translated, no problem. Next time it will be me used as a beast of burden. Gail signed, sister, I think we need to give Todd a fashion show. For the first time ever, I heard Maria giggle, and she agreed. Yes, Gail, Todd needs to see everything that his money bought. Gail gave me a silly grin and signed, oh boy, Todd, you are in for a real treat. I had no idea what she meant, but I signed, and Maria translated, Roberto, will you come to the panic room with me? The girls left, I guess to prepare for the fashion show, while Roberto came with me to the panic room. He took one look at what I had attempted and laughed. He said, Todd, I have friends in the military. I will get you a gun rack for much less than you can cobble one together. I hid the offense, realized Maria wasn't here to translate, so I made the sign of money changing hands. Roberto said, Todd, I understand. Don't worry, because it will cost much less than what you were trying to do. Do you want it with a key lock on the doors? I thought for a moment and tried to make Roberto understand by making the sign of a woman and the holding a gun and firing. Roberto caught on and said, yes, Todd, there are places here where we can teach Maria and Gail to fire weapons. I continued to think, made the sign of locking a door, and shook my head no. Roberto understood, okay, you don't want to lock on the doors in case Maria and Gail need to get into the cabinet. I was going to sign some more when Maria and Gail walked into the panic room and took my breath away. Present, Ben, Jens, and others. The trip. The movie is over and I suggest, how about a nightcap before bed? Jens motions to a cabinet and says, the knob creak is in there. I open up the cabinet, pull out 2 shot glass, pour 2 fingers in each, walk back to the bed and hand one to Jens. Jens remarks, This isn't quite what I thought our lives would be like after we got married. I apologize, sorry about this. I never dreamed the scumsuckers would still be after me. Jens giggles and says, Ben, that's not what I meant. I don't care about the scumsuckers being after us as long as they never catch us. I just thought we would settle down in the cabin and lead a peaceful life. I use my hands to indicate that Sif's trailer and remark, Jens, right now this is better than the cabin. Jens seductively smiles at me and says, are you ever going to finish that drink and come to bed? I finish the drink with one gulp and go to my wife. Present, Stacy, Samantha, and Inga, out of the clinic. I'm thankful to be out of the nut house, because if I had stayed much longer, I would have gone crazy myself. I'm upset that the terrors are after Ben and Samantha, and that Bill doesn't think we needed to do anything about it. But now that I'm out, that's going to change. I have a private meeting with Bill, and the first thing I bring up is, Bill, it's not acceptable that the terrors attacked Samantha and Ben, and we aren't doing anything about it. Bill replies, Ms. Summers, it was felt the attack on Ms. Stevens was supposed to be a diversion to distract everyone from the real attack on Ben Blaine. So, I didn't feel it was necessary to react further to the attack on Ms. Stevens. I order, Bill, that's just not acceptable to me. They could have destroyed the brewery and killed some of the people that live in Leadville. This is our new home, and we need to take care of this home. I want you to figure out a way to watch for any possible terrors arriving in Leadville. Bill thought for a few moments and suggested, Miss Summers, we could connect some video cameras to the city Wi-Fi system and hand control of them over to the sheriff. I ask, how is the Wi-Fi project going? Bill says, great. We were going to roll it out while you were in the hospital, but decided to wait until you were released. Now that you're out, we can roll it out anytime. I ask, how much longer will it take to add the cameras to the Wi-Fi system? Bill answers, a couple days, but we should probably get the city council's okay first. After his suggestion, I respond, how is our relationship with the city council? Bill smiles and says, it couldn't be better, and I'm sure they will okay this addition, especially since we're giving it to the sheriff department to operate. I continue, and how is our relationship with the sheriff? Bill frowns a bit. Miss Summers, when you fired at Ben, you really upset Jim the sheriff since they were best friends in high school. I've been working to smooth things over with him, and the camera system might really help. Samantha knocks on the door, so I look at Bill and say, well, you have some work to do. Samantha walks in, smiles, and says, I wondered where my BFF was. Did I interrupt something? Bill answers, no, Miss Stevens, we were just finishing. I ask Stacy, how are you feeling today? Stacy smiles and responds, I feel great, and it's good to sleep in my own bed again. The stupid mattress in the hospital squeaked every time I rolled over, so it was hard to relax. I suggest, if you're hungry, we could head to your new restaurant and get something to eat. Stacy asks, are they open for breakfast? I smile at Stacy and remark, they are for us. We walk to the restaurant and find Inga is there cleaning the tables. She sees us walk in and quickly comes over, hugs Stacy and says, I see Stacy and Samantha come into the restaurant and decide I need to thank Stacy for my job. I walk over, hug her, and say, I want to thank you for letting me open this restaurant. Stacy smiles at me and says, I should be thanking you. From all I've heard, the chef has never been happier, and the people of Leadville love it. I ask them, what would you like for breakfast? Samantha replies, how about a 2-egg Western omelet? Stacy agrees, that sounds good to me. I head back to the kitchen and give the chef the order. He smiles and says with his slight French accent, it is good to have Stacy back since there are some things I would like to discuss with her. I smile at the chef and reply, Henri, we've talked about these things. Why don't you concentrate on the cooking while I discuss them with Stacy? I head out of the kitchen, grab the coffee pot on my way, walk over to Stacy and Samantha, turn over their cups, and fill them with coffee. Then I ask, might I sit and talk with the both of you? Stacy says, sure, I'd like to talk with you, so please join us. I sit at the table, pour myself a cup of coffee, look at Stacy and request, Henri and I have been thinking about expanding the restaurant. Stacy asks, Inga, what plans have you and Henri discussed? I smile and reply, well, we'd like to expand the restaurant space, be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and also increase the number of items that we offer. Stacy looks at me and asks, how are the current financials for the restaurant? I knew she would ask that, so I said, let me go and get them. I walk back into the kitchen where Henri announces their order and then asks, their omelets are done. How are things going with the discussion? I smile at Henri and say, Stacy asked to see the financials, which I have right here. I pick up the financials with the omelets and head back to the table. I serve the food and slide the financials toward Stacy. She says, I will look at them after I enjoy this wonderful omelet. The food in the nut house was terrible. Samantha adds as she continues to eat, I personally think it would be a great idea to expand the restaurant. It's a waste of Henry's talents to cook just for us so much of the time. Stacy finishes her omelet and says, okay, let me see the financials. I slide the financials in front of her. She smiles and then comments, "You guys are making huge money on this restaurant. Do you have any projections of cost to implement your new plan?" I reply, "It's at the back of the documents." Stacy flips to the last pages, looks at them, and says, "So you will need to hire 3 other employees as kitchen help?" I smile and answer, "Yes." Henri says if we're careful with the menu, he can handle it with 3 others in the kitchen. Stacy surprises me when she says, "Inga, you didn't figure the cost of the 3 new employees correctly since we have a standard benefits plan that all employees get. Not only that, you didn't include yourself in this financial projection. Please don't tell me you want to work for free." I stutter, No. I would prefer not to work for free, but I have been making enough money on tips to survive." Stacy looks at me and states, "I hope you've kept good track of your tips because they will need to be reported as income." I frown and reply, "Stacy, sorry I didn't do that yet, but I will from now on. So how do you like the plan?" Stacy looks at the financial information and advises, "Inga, I think it's a great idea, but I want to think on it for a couple days first and have my accountants look at it. You do realize that most restaurants fail in the first 3 years, don't you? Right now this restaurant is flying high because it's new in town, but what are your plans after it's been open for a few months?" I smile at Stacy and reply, "I did think about that, and I was planning on doing some advertising in Denver and of course talking with the local hotels to see about doing romantic weekend getaways." Stacy throws a major monkey wrench in my plans when she says, "Inga, winter is coming, and when that happens it will be hard to get people to come here for a romantic weekend." I think for a moment and hopefully save myself by mentioning, "Well, Leadville is on the route to many major ski areas, so we could get them to stay here during the nights instead of wasting money at the overpriced ski resorts. We could even work out some shuttle bus service to the ski resorts." Stacy looks at Samantha and changes the subject. "Samantha, did you ever hear from the realtor about the ski area?" Samantha replies, "No, Stacy, I never did hear from her about that. But I do know she's been a big help on finding good and inexpensive homes for the staff who have already moved here." Stacy thinks out loud, "With our workers moving here, we need to provide some entertainment at night. Are there any movie theaters?" I reply, "Not anymore. They all closed." Stacy shakes her head and says, "Okay, Samantha and Inga, I need to do some serious thinking about things." I don't like it when Stacy leaves because I'm not sure about the restaurant, but Samantha stays behind and says, "Don't worry, Inga. I will work on Stacy for you. However, I am concerned since I love working at the restaurant." I catch up to Stacy and she asks, "Samantha, do you know what sort of work Inga did when she was at Ben's cabin?" I smile at Stacy and reply, "Stacy, I think that she worked for the SIFs group that goes around the country and fixes things." Stacy ponders for a moment and says, "Then what's her motivation to open and work in a restaurant?" I reply, "I have no idea." Stacy requests, "Sam, you seem close to her. Please find out more about what she did at Ben's cabin. If she was with that SIFs group, it could be good for us." I question, "When would you like me to do that?" Stacy replies, "How about now?" I head back to the restaurant where Inga sees me and asks, "Don't tell me you're still hungry?" I smile and reply, "No, the omelet was great. Stacy had some questions about you and asked me to get the answers." Inga smiles and says, "Fire away." I ask, "She wanted to know what sort of work you did at Ben's cabin." "I think you worked for that SIFs group with Tom." Inga smiles at me and says, "I can neither confirm nor deny that rumor." I giggle and reply, "Okay, that's a yes. Do you still have contact with them?" Inga grins and asks in reply, "Which group is that?" I reply, "Okay, that's another yes." I continue, "Stacy's biggest question is why you want to open and work in a restaurant now?" Inga bites her lower lip and confesses, "I needed something to do, and once I tried some of Henry's food and heard him complain almost continually about not having anyone to cook for, I just decided to help him." Then Inga asks, "I figure that if Samantha can ask me questions, that she should be able to answer some too." So I ask, "Tell me, Samantha, how is Stacy handling Ben being gone and his marriage to Jennifer?" Samantha looks down and says with concern, "To be truthful, Inga, the hospital didn't fix anything. She's still obsessed with Ben, and while she hasn't said anything about the marriage, I'm sure she still doesn't accept it." I convey to Samantha, "That's sure as hell not good, and you, as their reporter, should know it. Look at how those two are together. Have you ever seen 2 people more in love?" Samantha slightly cries and says, "Inga, I know there is no hope for Stacy with Ben, but she's my BFF and I have no idea how to help her. I suggest, Samantha, we need to put our heads together and come up with some way of helping Stacy over this hurdle. Present, Ben, Jens, and others. The trip." I wake up early, hop out of bed, and Jens complains, "Hey, where are you going?" I smile at her and say, "I thought I would go for a run." Jens replies, "Aren't you forgetting your wig and glasses?" I complain, "Jens, it's early enough that I shouldn't need those." Jens jumps out of bed and demands, "Ben, you of all people should know better than to say that. Now put on the wig and glasses. I begin to put on the wig, but grumble about it. Jens begins to get into a short as hell pair of running shorts and a sports bra. I complain, Jens, you can't wear that. Jens grins and asks, why not? I'm a married woman. I reply, exactly. You're my married woman, and I sure as hell don't want you giving everyone a look at almost your whole body. Jens giggles and says, Ben, don't worry, they won't be looking at me whatsoever. I try to continue my complaint as Jens heads to the door for our bedroom, opens it, and Ira announces, we are ready for our morning run. My eyes practically fall out of my head because they are wearing even less than Jens. Jens turns, sticks out her tongue, and says, see, I told you. No one will be watching me at all. I do remind her, Jens, you forgot your wig and glasses. Mira reinforces my comment. Mr. Blaine is correct. You cannot run without your wig and glasses. Now it's Jens' turn to complain. With the way you two look, referring to Mira and Ira, I don't think I need to wear the frickin' wig. Ira demands, Ms. Blaine, do not make me get physical with you. She then holds out the wig. Jens quickly retreats from Ira's threat. Okay, Ira, I will wear the frickin' wig. She takes the wig, puts it on. Ira hands her the glasses, and she puts those on. I suggest, I'm not sure we want to start out from the truck stop. Let's call the guys and have them move the truck away from here. Jens pulls up a map on the console and says, how about we have them drive a few miles down the road and wait for us? Mira shoots down the idea. Ms. Blaine, the feasibility of that postulation is an impossibility since we would have no access to the weapons and no drone device coverage. Jens gripes. Well then what the hell are we supposed to do? Ira informs us, Ms. Blaine, we will of course accompany you with our katanas while the drone device will automatically follow. If the range becomes too great for the drone device, the drivers will be alerted and they can then proceed with the truck. I wave my hand at the three of them and say, well, we're moving the truck out of this truck stop before we exit the trailer. There's no way I'm letting you three be seen in a truck stop. Hell, I would have to fight off all the truckers if I did. The girls giggle. I call the drivers and give them my order. Mira motions for the microphone and then informs them about the drone following us and how it will alert them if we get close to the limit of its range. We feel the truck begin to move. It stops again in about 10 minutes and Johnny comes on the comm and says, okay, we're away from the truck stop, so you four can sneak out of the trailer now. Ira holds up two pager-looking devices and orders, clip these to your belts. It will allow the drone device to follow you. I take the device, look at it, and prepare to complain when Jens says, thanks Ira and Mira for taking such good care of us. Jens and I get on the hatch. Mira lowers it to the ground, and we roll off the hatch. It raises, and then Ira and Mira exit the trailer the same way. I hear a whirring noise, look up, see the drone, and wish like hell I had my pistol. I would shoot the scumsucker down. We're on a frontage road adjacent to I-25 and begin our run. Ira quickly takes the lead while Mira brings up our six. Things are going well until flashback, Jack, later in the morning. We finished the great breakfast prepared by John, and I began the drudgery of filing some more paperwork. Colonel Maggie suddenly remembered, Jack, we forgot to find you a new aide. I teased. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to remember that, but I figured with your advanced age. Colonel Maggie glared at me and interrupted. Jack, you might be on my good side for showing me what John can really do if he gets good food supplies, but you'd better not push your luck, because I'm sure John could use someone to peel potatoes in the kitchen. Then she looked at some paperwork on her desk, gave me a wicked grin that I sure as hell didn't like, and said with a taunt in her voice, he's not a corporal, but I'm sure he will be perfect for the job. I backpedaled. Sir, I'm not sure I need an aide. Colonel Maggie agreed. Oh, I'm sure you don't. However, after what you've done with Sergeant Blaine, and then John, this Marine needs your personal instruction 24/7. He's a private. His name is Tom, and he's one of the new recruits they are sending me. I looked at Colonel Maggie and asked, he's only a private? Not even a PFC? What the hell happened? I thought almost everyone exiting basic was at least a PFC. Colonel Maggie grinned and said, don't you just love a good mystery? What happened in basic is for you to find out. I was going to continue when the two CIA agents walked into the office without even knocking or being announced. Colonel Maggie complained, who the hell are you and why are you in my office unannounced? I sure as hell didn't like the attitude of either of them, so I could tell that Ben was going to have a royal field day with them unless they adjusted real quick. They sat down without asking. Then one of them said, HQ sent us. We need immediate transportation to the hospital so we can interrogate the prisoner. Colonel Maggie glared at them and declared, I don't care if the old man himself sent you here. You are in my office without permission, so get the hell out until your visit is properly announced. The mouthy one complained, why should we? Colonel Maggie opened her desk drawer, pulled out a pistol, waved it between them and said, because I, with the support of my good friend here, ordered you to. They held up their hands, and the mouthy one said, okay, we're leaving, But just so you know, we're in a hurry. They left the office as Colonel Maggie called her aide on the phone and said, "Make those two scumsuckers as uncomfortable as possible. Then have them wait 15 minutes before you send them in." She swore, "Just who do they think they are talking to? I know for a fact they would never pull that on the general. If they think they can pull that sort of bullshit once they're away from HQ, then they need to be educated." I grinned at Colonel Maggie and tried to soothe her. "Well, sir, I would say you properly schooled them." She laughed and remarked, "Did you see the size of their eyes when I pointed the pistol at them?" I said, "No, sir, I was behind them and was assisting you." Colonel Maggie asked, "What do you mean?" I held up the pistol I had pointed at them and replied, "They should really know better than to enter an office unannounced in a war zone." I wasn't sure who they were, so I was just being careful. Colonel Maggie grinned at me and ordered, "Jack, there's an M4 behind the door. The next time they come into the office, pick it up and keep them covered." I saluted and replied, "Yes, sir." Colonel Maggie grinned and proudly announced, "Yes, Tom will be perfect for you." Colonel Maggie's phone rang. She answered and said, "I told you to make sure they waited for 15 minutes. Now don't bother me again." I grinned at Colonel Maggie and she asked, "Jack, what's on the devious mind of yours?" I replied, "I was just thinking how the shit's going to hit the fan when Ben meets them." Flashback, Ben, back at the formerly captured hospital. George got a call from Colonel Maggie and announced, "The CIA agents are on their way. And Colonel Maggie says they are bringing some real coffee." That statement practically made my day. The instant shit in the MREs was crappy, so I was looking forward to a real cup of coffee. I offered, "George, I will meet the chopper when it sets down on the roof." George said, "Sorry, Ben, but the CIA officers requested a private room to interrogate the prisoner. I need you to set it up and move the prisoner into the room." I asked, "Did they ask for anything special in the room?" George replied, "They wanted a room with water in it." I chuckled. I figured as much. Too bad we don't have running water. George naively asked, "Why did they want water?" I laughed, "Because they are going to waterboard the shit out of him." George complained, "Hell, they did that to me during my SEER, search, evasion, resistance, and escape training before I was deployed. I hated it." I teased, "Hell, what they did to you isn't even going to be close to what they do to the terror." I further stated, "Well, they're going to have to do without water because we sure as shit don't have running water. So I hope they bring their own tools." I set up a room for the CIA agents with 3 chairs and a table. Then I went up to the prisoner, shocked out of him, so he passed out. I untied him, moved him into the room, and tied him to a new building support. I finished just in time because I heard the chopper coming to the roof. I dashed up to the roof, watched as the CIA scumsuckers got off the chopper, ran up to one of them and asked, "Where's my coffee?" The chopper spooled up and left, and one of the agents said, "It just left with the chopper. Now, Sergeant, take us to the lieutenant." I swore, "You stupid scumsuckers. You left my coffee on the chopper because you were too stupid to know better. I should throw both your butts off this roof." I could see the fear in their eyes as they backed up. George showed up, and the one agent said, "Boy, are we glad to see you. I want to report this sergeant for threatening us. He wanted to throw us off the roof." George asked, "Ben, is this true?" I replied, "Hell yes, it's true. The stupid scumsuckers left my coffee on the chopper." George said, "Excuse us a minute." He pulled me to the side and said, "Ben, don't agitate these agents, or I will have to tell Colonel Maggie." I glared at George and said, "Listen, George, I've had more run-ins with CIA agents than I can count on both hands, and every time I've been bent over by them. Just keep these 2 stupid scumsuckers away from me, or so help me God, I will throw them off the roof." The talkative agent timidly came up and asked, "Excuse me, did the lieutenant call you Ben? You aren't by any chance Ben?" I glared at him and answered, "That's what my friends call me. However, you and your friend can call me Sergeant Blaine." The agent continued, "We've heard of you, and I would like to apologize to you for not taking your coffee off the chopper. I will make sure the next incoming chopper has a whole pallet of coffee on it." He leaves, goes back and talks with his partner. George asked, "Ben, what was that all about?" I grinned at George and said, "The CIA agents who screwed Jack and me over in the past had a bad habit of disappearing. I guess they were warned about me." George gasped, "Don't tell me you killed them?" I smiled and said, "No, I didn't. They just had unfortunate and terminal accidents brought about by their poor judgment. Listen before you judge me, it was during missions for them where they failed to provide extraction for us." The agent returned and asked George, "We would like to use your communications equipment. Then we would like to see the prisoner." George took them to our CNC room. Flashback, Jack, later in the morning. Colonel Maggie got a phone call. She answered it, then hung up and began to laugh. I looked at her and asked, "What's so funny?" She grinned bigger than I had ever seen and said, "That was the mouthy CIA agent. Apparently, he left the coffee I sent for Sergeant Blaine on the chopper. He asked if we could send a chopper with a whole pallet of coffee on it." I laughed and said, I guess Ben put the fear of God in them. The phone rang again. Colonel Maggie answered it, and I heard her as she said, "Lieutenant, I'm sure that Sergeant Blaine was kidding. Don't worry, because we're sending a chopper with a whole pallet of coffee on it, so that should smooth things over." She hung up the phone and laughed. Sergeant Blaine threatened to throw the CIA agents off the roof. I guess they had heard of him because they apologized to him and then asked for the pallet of coffee. "Jack, you weren't kidding when you said Sergeant Blaine got cranky without his coffee." I asked, "So what are you going to do?" Colonel Maggie smiled and answered, "Send them a whole pallet of coffee, of course, and charge it to the CIA." Then I remembered my problem. "Colonel Maggie, I have a new problem at home." Colonel Maggie asked, "Don't tell me your wonderful wife is having problems again." I felt like an idiot when I said, "Sir, I forgot to set up my bank accounts so Masha could access them." Colonel Maggie laughed and taunted, "Jack, I can't believe you implied I had problems remembering because of my advanced age. How could you forget this?" I confessed, "Sir, I never had this situation before, and it slipped my mind." Colonel Maggie must have felt I was properly chastised because she offered, "Well, Jack, let's fill out the paperwork for you." We found the forms and began to fill them out. Flashback, Masha, another day with Tina. Louise said, "Sorry, Annie, Masha, we both need to get to work." Brenda asked, "Why are we leaving so early?" Louise replied, "We're close enough to the store that I like to walk." Brenda gave Louise a dirty look which Louise didn't notice and said, "Walking is for dogs. I'm taking my car." I was proud of Louise when she complained, "Brenda, taking the car everywhere is one of the reasons you are overweight." Brenda replied, "Well, I might have an emergency and need the car, so I'm taking my car." They both left. Tina went to her high chair again, and I asked, "Are you ready to eat your yogurt?" I picked her up, set her in the chair, retrieved the yogurt from the refrigerator, held it in front of her, and she began to cry. I stated, "That's fine with me. You are not getting anything else until you eat the yogurt." I put Tina back on the floor where she sat down and continued to cry. Linda walked over to her and tried to cheer her up, and I was shocked when Tina began to hit Linda. I roughly grabbed Tina, took her to the extra room with Jack's gun safe, put her down on the floor, and scolded her. "Tina, that was a very bad thing to do." I closed the door to Tina's crying. Then she began to bang on the door. I rushed back into the kitchen, picked up Linda, who cried because of Tina's aggressiveness, and comforted her. This day started out badly and was becoming even worse. I really hated the fact that I offered to take care of Tina. Flashback, Jennifer at home. Mother just started to complain about my statement that I didn't want her to manage my ballet career when I was saved by the doorbell. I interrupted, "Don't worry, I will get the door." Before anyone could say anything, I was out of the kitchen and at the front door. I checked the peephole in the door, saw it was Colonel Clark, opened the door, and said, "I didn't expect to see you so soon." He didn't smile and said, "Jennifer, I need to talk with you and your father." He entered the house as Daddy had walked up, saw him, and said, "Colonel Clark, to what do we owe this pleasure?" Colonel Clark didn't smile as he replied, "Sir, we need to talk about what happened to Jennifer." Daddy said, "Let's do this in my office." The three of us went into Daddy's office where Daddy took his place behind his desk. I sat on the edge of the desk, and Daddy motioned to Colonel Clark to sit. He sat in the chair across from the desk and stated, "Sir, we are having some problems with Marcia, the girl who hit your daughter with the rock." Then he looked at me, realized I was home instead of in the hospital, and asked, "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" Daddy replied, "Colonel Clark, sometimes the strangest things happen in this family. Jennifer is totally healed. Hell, her hair even grew back." Colonel Clark smiled and said, "Well, that makes my job easier. Marcia is claiming that Jennifer attacked her the previous night at the school and that she was afraid of Jennifer. She now claims that's why she threw the rock at her." Daddy asked me, "Jennifer, is that true? Did you attack Marcia?" I boldly answered, "You're darn right I did. She and another fat cow came into my room and threatened me, so I defended myself." Daddy looked at Colonel Clark and asked, "So, what are the problems?" Colonel Clark replied, "Marcia's parents are lawyers and have filed a suit against Jennifer. They are saying that she assaulted their daughter." I complained, "But I only did it after they threatened me." Colonel Clark explained, "That's not what the witness they have says." I remembered, "Wait, there were other girls in my room the night that fat cow tried to attack me." Colonel Clark asked, "Do you remember any of their names?" I replied, "Heck no, I was new at the school and hadn't learned any of the names yet." I thought for a second, then remembered, "Wait a minute, I think Rachel was one of them." Colonel Clark replied, "Good, I will try to contact her, and we will see what Rachel says." Daddy asked, "Is there anything else I can do?" Colonel Clark smiled and said, "No, sir. I will keep you informed of the progress." Daddy walked Colonel Clark to the door, and Mother cornered me in Daddy's office where she complained, "Jennifer, what did you mean by saying you don't want me to manage your dancing career?" I smiled at Mother and said, "Mother, do I really need to spell this out for you?" I can't be any clearer than to say, I don't want you to manage my ballet career. Daddy walked back into his office, saw us fighting, and said, I think I will get a cup of coffee. Mother complained, Glenn, you will do no such thing. I need you here on this serious discussion with our daughter. Glenn said, Evelyn, you do realize you're fighting a losing battle, don't you? Mother fought. Glenn, I am not fighting a losing battle. Jennifer will let me manage her dancing career. I interrupted. Or what? Don't tell me. You're going to send me to a military school? Mother, if you had not noticed, that particular threat won't ever work with me again. In fact, this fight over your threat has forced me to decide something. Mother asked coldly, Oh really, what have you decided now? I glared at her and declared, I have decided that I will never dance again. Mother's face went white. She began to gasp for air, then collapsed to the floor. Daddy and I rushed to her side. Daddy checked her pulse and ordered, Jennifer, call an ambulance. I jumped up, grabbed his phone off the desk, and called an ambulance. Mother was barely breathing, so I started to cry and said, Mother, please stop it. But it didn't help. Flashback, Alexei, out for dinner. Father didn't even talk during dinner, which was not like him. I tried several times to elicit conversations to which he responded with 1 or 2 words. I assumed that he felt badly about Mother having sex with the orderlies. It was certainly a gross image etched into my mind that I knew I would never forget. I was shocked at how fragile Mother's mind was. I never dreamed she would lose all touch with sanity from Chow Main's attacks. I desired to obtain information on what our lives would be now that we would no longer go to the laboratory. Would I be placed in a normal school? Would Father still continue his experiments on me? But answers for these questions would need to wait until Father felt more like talking. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. I completed the task of suturing my sister's side, examined my work, and announced, Now if you desist from ripping out the sutures, this should heal well. Mira continued in her giggly, inebriated condition and said, I thought we were sleeping on the couch together. I dramatically pointed around the cave and inquired, Mira, where is the couch upon which you wish to repose? Mira attempted to rise, which she was unable to perform, and replied, We must be in an incorrect cave since I distinctly remember a couch as part of the furnishings. I lay beside my sister on the floor, held her, and ordered, Mira, there is no couch. Now go to sleep. I could not believe what Mira did next. She released a huge volume of flatulence which smelled terrible. Then she complained, Ira, why did you do that? Now the whole cave stinks. I did not care to argue with Mira the foolish, so I simply apologized. Sorry, Mira, I will not do that again. Finally, Mira drifted off to sleep. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Gail and Maria walked into the panic room, and suddenly I couldn't even sign, and my mouth must have fallen open because Maria asked, Todd, are you trying to say something? I quickly regained my wits and signed, Sorry about that, but I didn't know you two were fashion models. Gail signed, Uncle Todd, put your eyes back in your head. You're too old for me. I looked at Roberto and signed, which Maria translated. Roberto, you watched them try on these clothes and still complained about shopping with them. Roberto answered, Of course I did. No married man should have to endure that torture. I continued, Hell, no single man should have to endure it. Maria said, This is just the start, Todd. Wait until we get to the swimsuits. I looked at her and asked, Swimsuits, why did you need them? Gail signed, Todd, there's a swimming pool here, that's why. I looked at Roberto and signed, while Maria translated, I think we need to lock the door before they come back. Maria complained, Todd, you will do no such thing. You paid for these clothes, so you deserve to see them. Gail got sassy, besides we know the code for the room. But if you would like to help my sister change. She never got a chance to finish because I signed. Gail has her mind in the gutter. Gail shocked me when she signed, Hey, I know what you two did last night. I looked at Maria and Maria said, Todd. She guessed, then asked me about it, and I couldn't lie to her. Gail continued, It was evident because Maria was so happy today. Maria gave me a knowing smile and winked at me. Thank God no one else saw it. The front doorbell rang and I signed, I will see who it is. I was happy to leave before things got more serious. Present, Ben, Jens, and others. The trip. Things are going great on the run. Even the drone backed off, so it's no longer bothering me. We're running on a frontage road adjacent to I-25 when some stupid scumsucker stops without pulling completely out of the traffic lane and begins to yell at Mira and Ira. Hey babes, how about you come over here? I promise to show you a good time you will never forget. Unfortunately, the stupid scumsucker let his hormones override his judgment, and he forgot he was on an interstate highway. Some cars swerve around him with their tires screeching. Then the inevitable happens. Someone plows into the butt end of his car. It's impressive as hell because the car that plows into him almost flips over. This starts a chain reaction accident with multiple cars running into the mess. I look at Jens, Mira, and Ira and command, We need to get out of here before the police show up. Ira agrees. Yes, Mr. Blaine. It would not be virtuous to be detained by the constabulary. We turn around and haul back toward the semi and the trailer, but when we arrive where we left the semi, it's gone. I look at Ira and ask, where the hell is our ride? Ira takes a radio off her belt and calls the semi, Tommy or Johnny. This is Ira. What is your current location? Johnny replies, we decided to drive down I-25 for a short distance to save time. Ira angrily says, Johnny, this was not our order. We need you now at our drop-off location. How far down Interstate 25 are you? Johnny apologizes, we're about 10 miles ahead of you. Sorry, we didn't think you would mind. We'll turn around and be right back. I motion for the radio, take it from Ira, and order, Johnny, you will never make it back here. Mira and Ira's costumes caused a huge accident on I-25, so the southbound lane is totally blocked and the northbound lane is. I stop because I hear more noise from a crash. I look over and see the looky-loos caused a crash in the northbound lanes. I continue. The northbound lanes are now also blocked. We'll run toward you guys on the frontage road. Johnny gives us good news when he says, we're on the frontage road ourselves, so we'll turn around and hightail it in your direction. We turn around, head south, and I'm running almost as fast as I can run. I complain, the next time we go for a run, all three of you are going to wear BDUs. The three of them giggle, and I continue. There's nothing funny about this. Jens announces, Ben, why are you so angry about this? That's a good question. I think about it while we're running and finally answer. Jens, you're right. I'm not sure why I'm so angry about this. Forgive me, you three. Jens sprints past me, slaps my butt, and says, that's the Ben that I know and love. I catch Jens and say, you're going to pay for that. We run past the accident site on southbound I-25 and Ira announces, Mr. Blaine, a member of the constabulary, seems to be motioning to us. I look over and see a highway patrolman motioning for us to come towards him. I swear, we're sure as hell not stopping for that son of a bitch. We arrive at the semi where Ira and Mira crawl underneath the trailer, get the hatch open, and are gone. Jens and I are next. We're no sooner in the trailer than it begins to move as Ira announces. The drone device has been recovered, however, a constabulary vehicle is approaching. I move to the control panel and see the front-mounted camera shows a highway patrol car coming toward the semi. The patrol car pulls across the road and I state, if he wants to look in the trailer, we're screwed now. Jens says, I hate to tell you, my husband, but you're wrong. Jens, Ira, and Mira head to the back of the trailer where Jens climbs up on a short stool and pulls down a rolling door. She turns, smiles at me, and says, now if they open the trailer door, it will look like it's full. I guess they thought of everything. The semi stops and Johnny has keyed the mic to the trailer, so we hear the state trooper demand, I want to see your load. Johnny complains, our trailer was sealed at the factory. You will need to get a warrant to have it opened. We watch on the external cameras as the trooper and Johnny walk to the back of the trailer. Johnny shows him the seal on the door. The trooper nods his head and walks back to his car. Johnny gets back into the cab and says, well, that was a close one. It's a good thing Tom had the seal placed on the door after you forgot in the trailer, otherwise we would have had to open it. Tommy says, let me turn this rig around, and we'll be back on the road in almost no time. Turning around was easier said than done because the traffic from I-25 had been rerouted down this service road. We finally turn around and Jens says, I'm starved, what's for breakfast? I smile at her and say, well, with us moving, cooking is out of the question. Mira interrupts. Mr. Blaine, we have a large selection of frozen toaster device food available and an even larger selection of military meals ready to eat. I reply, there's no way in hell I'm having an MRE for breakfast, so toaster device food it is. Mira takes me to the freezer, shows me the food, and I can't believe it. Mira understated the amount of frozen breakfast we had. Jens comes over and says, I want the pancake sandwich. Mira and Ira offer, Mr. Blaine, we would be cheerful eating one of the meals ready to eat. I complain, like hell I'm going to fix meals refusing to exit for you too when we have such a great selection of frozen breakfasts. Ira asks for clarification, Mr. Blaine, what is a meal refusing to exit? Jens provides the answer, Mira and Ira. That's what we called meals ready to eat in the Marines because they had a tendency to make you constipated. Ira replies, the Russian military meals were superior to the American meals, especially the dried fish. I give Mira and Ira a dirty look and declare, I hated the dried fish because it was too salty. Ira laughs and says, Mr. Blaine, sometimes I cannot comprehend your statements. Mira adds, yes, Mr. Blaine, we would fight over the dried fish. What I wouldn't give for some dried fish right now. I say, and a beer or 3 or 4 to accompany it. Ira longingly says, yes, a great Baltica beer would be excellent. I reply, I do agree some of the Baltica beers were good, but others tasted like horse piss. Mira giggles and teases, Mr. Blaine, how do you know the taste of horse urine? Jens giggles and says, Ben, Mira and Ira stop goofing around. I'm hungry. They select their meals, and I grab mine. We head to the microwave and begin to heat up our breakfasts. Present, Samantha, Stacy, and Inga. Stacy is Rupita. Inga and I are trying to figure out a way to keep Stacy from obsessing on Ben and Jennifer when my phone rings. I check in at Stacy, so I answer. Hi Stacy, what did you need? Stacy confronts me. Samantha, why aren't you covering the news story about Ben and the bitch? I ask, what news story? Stacy yells into the phone. Samantha, the motorhome they were in has been destroyed by the terrors. Turn on the TV and watch it. I hang up on Stacy, turn on the TV, flip it to KOA Denver, and sure enough, there's the Arakoa woman doing a report on how the motorhome that Ben and Jennifer were in was destroyed. My phone rings again, and this time it's Liz. She orders Samantha get to Denver and cover the destruction of Ben and Jennifer's motorhome. I frown at Inga, begin to cry and say, sorry Inga, I have to go and cover this sad story. I can't believe that Ben and Jennifer are dead. Inga gives me a strange look and says, I don't think I would become too worried about the fate of the motorhome. My reporter instincts kick in and I ask, what do you mean? Inga motions me close and confides, Samantha, you can't tell a soul, but Ben and Jennifer weren't on the motorhome. I blink my eyes in amazement, wipe away the tears and ask, then where were they? Inga prepares to confess when Stacy, John and Vic run into the restaurant and Stacy orders, come on Sam, we're taking the chopper to Denver. Stacy grabs my hand. We head out to the waiting van and Bill drives like a madman to the airport. Stacy begins to cry and then snaps at me. Samantha, why did you do that report on them leaving in the motorhome? This is your entire fault. I remember Liz telling me that I didn't really give the terrors any valid information. This along with Inga's reaction lets me know that something is rotten in Denmark. I hold Stacy and comfort her by saying, Stacy, let's not assume that Ben is dead. We really won't know anything until we are at the scene and begin the coverage. You know that if anyone could escape this, it would be Ben. Stacy looks up at me and asks, Samantha seems to have the feeling that Ben's not dead. In fact, she seems almost sure of it. I smile at Sam and ask, Samantha, how many people were on the motorhome with Ben? Samantha replies, Stacy, there were 4 people. Ben, Jen, the bitch, and their 2 bodyguards Mira and Ira. I smile at Sam and say, so if Ben was on the motorhome, then there should be 4 bodies on it. I order Bill, Bill, you're coming with us on this. I want you to find out how many bodies are on the motorhome. Bill asks, why is that Miss Summers? I smile at Sam and say, it would be just like Ben to pull a fast one on everyone and trade the motorhome for something else. I'm almost sure of my deduction when Sam frowns and tries to talk me out of it. Stacy, you can't really be serious about this. I grin and say, as serious as ever. Then I change the subject. Bill, did you contact the accountants and give them the financials for the restaurant? Bill replies, of course I did, Miss Summers. They said to give them a couple days to look at things and to run a risk analysis on opening a restaurant in Leadville. I continue, in the movie theater? Bill replies, Ms. Summers, according to the accountants, that's a no-brainer, especially since we have so many of our people moving to Leadville. They suggested we offer it as a perk for having them move. I ask, do we still have some employees who are complaining about the move? Bill says, some of the younger employees didn't want to leave their life in New York City, but when they discovered how much further the dollar goes in Leadville, they stopped complaining. The only problem we've had should be helped by the movie theater. There isn't much to do at night, so some have gotten in trouble at the local bars. I have one final question for Bill. Did you contact the realtor and ask her why she hadn't gotten back to me on the ski area? Bill replies, yes, I did. She told me she's been so busy with all the moves that it had slipped her mind. She said she would have information for you next week. Samantha says, we're here, Stacy. I sit up while Bill opens the door for us. We climb into the chopper and head to Denver. Present, Ben, Jens, and others. The trip. We finish our toaster device breakfasts, which I made in the microwave, and I comment, I really didn't get enough of a run today and wish I could get in some more physical training. Ira quickly responds, Mr. Blaine, Mira, and I were going to practice martial arts. We would welcome the chance to evaluate your skills. I look at Jens, and she's grinning like the Cheshire Cat, so I know something's going on. I ask, well, my love, are you up for some martial arts training? Jens shocks me when she declines, my love. Mira and Ira have evaluated my skills, so I think I'm going to sit and observe. Mira states, yes, Ms. Blaine's martial arts skills are adequate, but not exceptional. I state, give me a few minutes to change my clothes, and then we can start. Jens follows me into our bedroom and warns, Ben, watch yourself. Mira and Ira are incredibly good, and they really kicked my rear. I grin at Jens and tease, I thought I was the only one who got to kick your butt. Jens grins and counters, Ben, you've got that wrong. For you, it's kiss my rear. Just watch yourself. I don't want you to get hurt. But also make sure you win so I can win the manicures and pedicures from them. I finish getting into my GI and ask, so what motivation do I have to win since you get the manicures and pedicures? Jens gives me a smoldering look and replies, don't worry, I know several ways to make you happy. I almost forgot to tell you. I made a mistake of using some of my best moves when I warmed up. They figured that out and were ready for them when I tried to use them. We head out of our bedroom, and I watch as Mira and Ira have already started. Jens was correct. They are really good. I walk up to the mat and say, I need a few minutes to warm up. I begin to stretch and warm up with some punches and kicks while making sure not to use any capoeira moves. I do notice that Mira and Ira watch me like hawks watching a scared rabbit. I finish and ask, which one is first? Mira replies, I would like the honor of first encounter. We both step on the mat, face each other and bow. I barely have time to react to Mira's first attack, but I do successfully block all her punches and kicks. Mira compliments my beginning. Very good, Mr. Blaine. I wanted to see if you were prepared for a rapid attack. Jens cheers, kick their rears, Ben. I'm comfortable for now to let Mira attack as I effectively stop those attacks. I am shocked at how fast and accurate she is. Jens encourages me. Ben, stop playing around and kick Mira's rear. Mira starts toward me for another attack, while I begin my capoeira dance, which confuses her, and she pauses. I don't hesitate, and a leg sweep takes her to the mat. Then I finish her off with some pulled punches. Mira complains, Mr. Blaine, that was not fair. I had no idea you knew capoeira. Jens, whoops, that's my Ben, always full of surprises. I can't wait for my manicure and pedicure. Jens motions to me, so I walk over to her, and she says, Ben, Ira's even better than Mira, and she now knows that you know capoeira. I smile at Jens and confide to her, Jens, don't worry, I might have learned a few new things since we sparred last time. I meet Ira in the middle of the mat, and she threatens, Mr. Blaine, you will not surprise me with your capoeira moves like you did with my sister. Unlike Mira, Ira doesn't immediately attack after our bows. Instead, she patiently waits for me to attack. I feign an attack, and then drop back as Ira launches into a counterattack. Jens is correct. Ira is much better than Mira, and damn, near hits me with one of her punches. I pretend like I'm starting a capoeira move which Ira counters. Then I move in for the kill using Muay Thai, a combat sport of Thailand that uses stand-up striking along with various clinching techniques, which I recently learned. Ira is shocked when I grapple her and perform multiple knees to her middle and legs. I then throw her across the mat like a rag doll where she lands on her back, kips up, bows and says, well done, sensei. I did not expect your Muay Thai attack. How many martial arts do you know? Jens runs over, hugs the hell out of me, and covers me with kisses. That's my man. I knew if anyone could beat them, it would be you. I hold Jens close and reply to Ira. I have extensive knowledge of 3 martial arts. Ira asks, well, we have seen capoeira and Muay Thai. What is the other? I grin at her and reply, you and Mira are too skilled, so I'm sure as hell not going to tell you. You will have to discover it another time. Mira requests, Mr. Blaine, would you mind teaching us some of the capoeira moves? I spend the next 30 minutes teaching them some basics of capoeira. Flashback, Masha, another day with Tina. Tina finally calms down in Jack's workroom and stops banging on the door while I have finally gotten Linda calmed down. I go to the workroom, check on Tina, and find she's sitting quietly on the floor. She sees me, smiles, and reaches for me. I pick her up and realize immediately that she has a very full diaper. Because she's still getting fruit, changing the diaper was an execrable job. The odor in the room was so bad it made my eyes hurt. I finished, put her on the floor, she walked to her high chair and began to shake it. I put her in the high chair, brought out the yogurt, and this time she ate it without problems. The phone rang, so I answered it, and heard, hello, my love. I miss you. I sweetly said, Jack, my Jack. How are you feeling? Jack replied, Masha, I'm doing better all the time, and I have good news for you. I completed the paperwork today for our bank. It will take a couple days to be processed, then you should be able to access our accounts. I smiled and said, thank you, my love, for doing that. Even though I still have some of Ben's money left, it will help. Jack asked, so what are you doing today? I replied, well, Jack, I'm taking care of 2 girls today. Linda, who's the sweetest baby you could ever imagine, and Tina, who's addicted to sugar and behaves terribly. Jack suggested, Masha, make sure you take some time for yourself. I replied, don't worry, Jack. Louise figured out the TV stereo system, and we watch movies at night. Jack chuckled and confessed, geez, Masha, I might need her to teach me how to run the thing when I get back. Ben never did teach me how to run it. I asked, Jack, do you know when you will be back? He replied, sorry, Masha, I don't know the exact date. It will probably be the last day of this deployment. I cried a little and said, Jack, I really miss you. Jack replied, and I really miss you too, Masha. Be patient, and I will be home soon. Look, I have to get going, and you probably need to get to the bank soon to sign some documents. He hung up the phone. I cried until I looked over at Tina and found she had dumped the yogurt on her head and was smearing it everywhere. I angrily ran over and said, "Bad girl Tina." I covered her with a dish towel so I didn't make more of a mess with the yogurt, took her out of the high chair and into the bathroom. I ran the water for her bath, set her in the tub, and roughly scrubbed her with soap. She began to cry again, and I said, "Well, bad girls get treated badly." I finished her bath, took her out of the tub, dried her with a clean towel, and realized I didn't have any more clothes for her. I took some of Linda's clothes and put them on Tina even though they were too small. Then I realized I hadn't heard anything from Linda, so I went into the room that Louise and Linda were going to share, and Linda was busy playing on the floor with the toys. Tina ran in and took the toy Linda was playing with out of her hand. Linda began to cry and I swore, "Tina, I have had enough of you." I picked her up, gave the toy back to Linda, which caused Tina to cry, took Tina back to Jack's workroom, and shut her in again. Once again, Tina cried and banged on the door. I ran back to Linda, who was now happy again with the toys, and said, "I don't think I can take care of you and Tina anymore." Linda said, "Tina, very bad girl." I checked my watch and realized it was already time for lunch, and I hadn't made anything. I dashed into the kitchen and had no idea what to make for lunch. Flashback, Jack, after the call to Masha. Well, Masha sure seemed like she was in a better mood today. However, I was worried about her taking care of all of these babies. Worried that she was going to want one of her own when I got back. Masha and I had never talked about having babies because we were too busy doing other things, but now we would need to address the issue. I was getting old and wasn't sure I wanted a baby, but was pretty damn sure that Masha wanted them. I decided to eat lunch in the mess hall. I walked into the mess hall, and it was totally different than before. Hell, it was full of Marines, talking, eating, and generally having a good time. Now this was a mess hall. I grabbed a tray, stood in the line. The Marine in front of me turned, saw me, and loudly announced, "Sergeant Reynolds is here." The entire mess hall stood up and began to cheer and clap. I wasn't sure what was going on until John came out and told me, "Jack, I made sure everyone knew that it was you that got the better food for us. Now come on, you're not going to stand in the line." John took me up to the front of the line. Then he loaded up my plate with more food than I could possibly eat. I walked toward a table, and everyone waved me toward them. I finally saw a couple old guys that I knew. I walked up to the table and gave them some shit. "What are old farts like you still doing in the Corps?" One of them laughed and said, "Look who's calling us old. Hell, you must have Methuselah beat for age by now." They made room. I sat down, looked at my plate, and offered, "If any of you want part of my food, you're welcome to it." They laughed, and Rich said, "Hell, John's been overloading all the plates today, but this sure beats the hell out of the way things used to be. Thanks for taking the bull by the horns and fixing the food situation." Fernando held up his coffee mug and praised, "And double thanks for this great coffee." I laughed and said, "That coffee that you're drinking is the General's private stash of coffee, so enjoy it while it lasts." Fernando asked, "I wonder if John can make good coffee with the normal coffee?" Rich said, "I bet he can. Now that he has some good food to work with, I've never eaten better." "So how did you pull this off, Jack?" I told them the whole story about our midnight requisition at HQ. Fernando remarked, "Damn, Jack, you were lucky the scumsuckers didn't blow out of the semi. Every trip I have taken, they've gotten at least one of the semis." I asked Fernando, "So they have you riding shotgun on the convoys?" He swore, "Hell yeah, and I hate it." Rich added, "Fernando's about bought the farm a couple of times." Then he grinned at me and said, "I heard you had a cushy job." Now it was my time to swear, like hell. I'm filing paperwork all day long, and then next week I start training the new recruits. Rich teased, "Damn, Jack, you doing office work, what a life." I glared at him and challenged, "I would be happy to trade with you any day of the week." Rich quickly backed off, "No way. Spending that much time around Colonel Maggie is enough to drive a person crazy." I honestly answered, "It's really not that bad. For an officer, she's a good one and doesn't walk around thinking that her shit doesn't stink." Fernando asked, "I heard you had a real SOB captain in the field." I grinned and said, "Hell yes we did, but he's gone now." Colonel Maggie pulled a General Donaldson on him. The guys looked perplexed, so I said, "She shipped his butt to Thule." Rich and Fernando about busted a gut laughing. Then Rich said, "Speak of the devil, here she comes." I grinned at them and said, "Let's have some fun, follow my lead." I jumped up from the table, stood at attention, and announced in my command voice, "Officer in the mess." All the Marines jumped up from their tables and stood at attention. Colonel Maggie walked up to our table and loudly announced, "Everyone except these three, as you were." Colonel Maggie teased, "I knew it was a mistake to let the three of you interact." Since I was sort of on her good side, I replied, "Yes, sir. You are always correct, sir. In fact, you are the most correct officer in the Marines, and we consider it an honor to serve under your command." Colonel Maggie laughed and said, "Jack Reynolds, you old bullshitter. I came in here to see how John's food is, and it's good to see this mess hall full of happy Marines." I offered, "Sir John gave me too much food. You are welcome to some of mine." I was too late as John came over with a plate for Colonel Maggie and said, "Sir, it's an honor to have you eat with the men today. This is a small sample of the food I made for them." Colonel Maggie took the plate, looked at it, and said, "John, there's enough food on this plate for two of me. We might need to work on your portion control since the last thing I want is my Marines getting fat." John apologized, "Sorry, sir. It's just such a pleasure to see Marines eating my food and enjoying it." I suggested, "Colonel Maggie, if you're eating with the troops, perhaps next week you would like to join us for PT." Colonel Maggie chuckled and replied, "Don't worry, Jack. I'm going to check out your training methods for the replacement troops. And when I do, I don't want you to pull any punches." Rich stated, "Now that I would almost pay to watch." She smiled at Rich and said, "Sergeant Richard Hayes, I should make you attend Jack's classes. From what I've heard, you're beginning to slack off." Rich backpedaled, "Sir, you must be mistaken. I would never slack off." Maggie asked, "So am I going to stand here all day, or are you boys going to invite me to join you?" We made room for her at the table, sat down, and Colonel Maggie said, "Jack, I dropped by to tell you your aide is here." We heard a hell of a noise. I spun around and saw that someone had knocked over all the trays and in a panic tried to pick them up, which added to the noise. Colonel Maggie continued, "Unless I'm mistaken, that's Private Tom now." Fernando asked, "How does he rank getting an aide?" I watched the Marine trying to fix his mess and offered, "Fernando, I will gladly let you take him." Colonel Maggie shot down my idea. "Jack, there's no way in hell you're going to palm off Tom on Sergeant Lopez. Jack, you're the only hope this Marine has of surviving this deployment. To give him to anyone else would be signing his death certificate." Son of a bitch. I felt like Colonel Maggie dumped the weight of the world on my shoulders. I replied, "Sir, I don't understand how Tom made it here, but I will do my best to train him." Colonel Maggie confessed, "Jack, he shouldn't be here at all because it took him 3 times to make it through basic. The only reason he's here is because his father was a Marine and pulled some strings." Then Colonel Maggie continued, "By the way, Sergeant Blaine should now be a happy camper. He got a full pallet of coffee." Rich and Fernando asked, "What was going on with Sergeant Blaine?" I laughed and regaled them with the story of Ben and the CIA agents, especially how the stupid scumsuckers left his coffee on the chopper and how he was going to throw them off the roof until Colonel Maggie shipped him a whole pallet of coffee that was charged to the CIA. They laughed so hard they practically fell off their seats. Colonel Maggie said, "Not only that, Jack, but Sergeant Blaine is well on his way to setting some sort of sniper record. Jack, having him as first sergeant at the hospital has made a huge difference. He's really taken the lieutenant under his wing and has turned him into a hell of an officer. Now you understand why I want you to train the new recruits." Rich suggested, "Colonel, it sounds like Sergeant Reynolds should be a DI." I angrily swore, "No way. I would have to wear one of those campaign hats." Colonel Maggie dropped a bombshell on me when she said, "But Jack, if you were a DI, you could be stateside with your new wife." Fernando teased, "Yeah, how in the hell did an old fart like you attract such a lovely young wife?" I puffed out my chest and bragged, "Some of us have it, and some don't." But Colonel Maggie's comment about being stateside gave me something to think about. Could I really leave Ben and be back home with Masha? Flashback, Ben, back at the formerly captured hospital. The CIA agent assured me, "Sergeant Blaine, I talked with Colonel Maggie, and she is sending a chopper with a whole pallet of coffee, paid for by the CIA. Now, if you don't mind, we would like to start on the prisoner." I sure as hell enjoyed their new attitude, so I said, "Let me take you to the scumsucker, and I hope like hell you torture the shit out of him." The other CIA agent asked, "Why's that?" I replied, "The scumsucker was putting suicide vests on young boys and girls, Christian boys and girls, who had been captured, and that the scumsuckers had been assaulting continuously. Unfortunately, we don't have water in the room, but if you need water, just let me know because I will have one of the Marines bring you a shitload of it. By the way, if you need any help, let me know." The agent replied, "We had heard of situations like this happening. If we can prove it, then it will really help the war effort." "You don't know where his lab is, do you?" I said, "Yeah, unfortunately we blew out of it." The first agent said, "It still might be nice to take a trip there to see if any intel is left." I replied, "It was about 4 blocks from the hospital. We had a hard enough time getting this scumsucker, so I can't imagine how hard it would be to get to the location." The CIA agent said, "Don't worry, we will call in a striker if we decide to go." We entered the room. They noticed the taser on the floor, so I explained, "The probes are connected to his genitals. I wanted to make sure if he started to scream, I could shut him up." The agents both laughed and said, "That was a great idea, but don't worry, he's going to screaming his butt off soon." Flashback, Jennifer, heading to the hospital. The ambulance came. They evaluated Mother and said, "We need to get her to the hospital. She's having a coronary." The 3 of us crammed into the back of the ambulance. Daddy held Mother's hand and said, "Don't worry, my love, you will be fine soon." The EMTs made Daddy move away from Mother, and they started to work on her. They hooked her up to a heartbeat monitor, and the beeping of the monitor was reassuring, until it began to go crazy and the EMT said, "She's going into fib. Get the paddles." They shocked Mother with the paddles twice before her heartbeat became normal again. We arrived at the hospital, they flung the back open and began taking Mother into the emergency room. There were doctors and nurses everywhere, so I just sort of blended into the background and watched. Finally, a doctor came over to Daddy, so I pushed my way beside him and listened while he said, "Glenn, your wife has had a heart attack. We won't know the extent of the damage until we do more tests. But she's stable for now, and we're going to transport her to CCU." I cried and said, "Daddy, I'm sorry about this. If Mother wants to manage my dancing career, she can." Daddy said, "Jennifer, don't worry about that. This isn't your fault." We followed Mother to the CCU where they hooked her up to more monitors. Then the nurses left, and I looked at Mother. I still couldn't help but feeling this was my fault. I took Mother's hand, remembered what Grandmother did for me, and wondered if I could do the same for Mother. Daddy was busy talking to the doctors in the hallway, so I tried to do what Grandmother did for me. It seemed as if Grandmother appeared in the room with me and guided me in what to do. Mother's heart rate slowed. She opened her eyes and complained, "Jennifer, what are you doing?" I shushed Mother and continued working. When I had finished, Grandmother smiled at me, and I knew Mother would be better. I moved to a chair, sat down, and was suddenly extremely hungry. Flashback, Alexei, out for dinner. I finally figured out that Father was hurting badly, so I tried to cheer him up by saying, "Father, do not worry. I am sure things will be better with Mother soon, and then she can come home." Father looked at me and said, "Alexei, I'm not sure I want her to come home to us. Not after." He stopped speaking, looked into the distance, and began to cry. I certainly never meant my experiments to cause him so much pain, so I tried again to cheer him up. "Father, could we go fishing tomorrow?" Father blinked at me and asked, "Alexei, we have never gone fishing. What would make you think of that?" I shrugged my shoulders and replied, "Well, if we are not going to the laboratory again, we need something to do tomorrow." Father finally smiled and said, "Alexei, I think that's an excellent idea. I might even have some old fishing gear in the garage." I didn't want to ruin Father's newfound happiness, so I refrained from any further questions. Flashback, Mira and Ira, continuing. I woke up and loudly demanded, "Ira, where is the couch?" Ira said, "Mira, there never was a couch in this cave. You were hallucinating because of the vodka. Now go back to sleep." I was sure there was a couch in this cave, so I began to rise and noticed that Ira had restrained my lower pedal units. I easily removed the restraint, arose, and began the search for the missing couch. Ira awakened and ordered. I woke up and determined my sister Mira was missing. I saw her wandering around the cave, so I ordered, "Mira, come back and sleep." Mira sassed me likened to a young child. "Ira, I will not. It is too cold and damp on the cave floor. I cannot somnolate in such an environment, therefore I require the couch to properly somnolate." I arose and ordered, "Mira, there is no couch in this cave." Mira sat upon something and stated, "Then my sister, what is this couch doing here?" I moved closer and said, "Mira, that is not a couch. That is an Ursa Arctos. Please move away before you awaken and anger it." Mira giggled and refused. "Ira, I will not leave this comfortable couch. Stop trying to confuse me by telling me it is an Ursa. Ursa whatever. It is you who has imbibed too great of a quantity of alcohol." Unfortunately, Mira's movements awakened the beast. It moved. Mira fell on the floor and complained, "This couch is alive." I lowered my AK at the Ursa Arctos, was ready to fire when it howled and ran out the front of the cave. Mira giggled in a manner akin to a child and stated, "Ira, we must find one of those walking couches." I finally acquired my sister, brought her close to me, and told a falsehood. "Yes, Mira, we will attempt to acquire a walking couch." Mira continued to postulate, "Yes, Ira. It naturally would not be as nice as having a flying gump." The flying gump was a combination of two couches, palm fronds for wings, a broom for a tail, and the head of a gump, an antlered animal that looks like a deer. The gump was brought to life by Mombi's, the witch, magic powder. Disney made a movie of this book in 1985, akin to the one in Frank Baum's book, The Marvelous Land of Oz. If we had a flying gump, we could traverse to Oz. I grew tired of my sister's continued prattle. Then I came up with an idea. "Mira, if you do not obtain sleep again, we will not be able to find a walking couch, because your vocalizations will continue to scare it away." Mira acquired a sitting position and stated, "Ira, I believe you are correct. But I acquiesced solely because my earlier vocalizations scared away our previous walking couch." Mira finally settled against me and began to sing, in her terrible voice, "When You Wish Upon a Star," and finally drifted off to sleep. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I went to the front door when the doorbell rang. and saved me from the fashion show Maria and Gail were subjecting me to. I checked the front door camera and realized I didn't know the man and woman at the front door. Roberto had wisely followed me. Also, to avoid the fashion show, pressed the button on the intercom and asked, "Please state your business." The woman waved, held up a plate of cookies and announced, "We're your neighbors and wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood." I nodded to Roberto. He opened the door and the neighbors walked in just in time to see Maria come down the stairs in another one of her new outfits. The woman held out the plate of cookies and said, "Welcome to our neighborhood." Maria replied, "Thank you for your kindness. We were hoping to meet our new neighbors." "Todd, would you like a cookie?" I signed to Maria, "Do not eat any of the cookies. We don't know if they are safe." Maria said, "Let me put these on one of our plates. We will eat them later." Maria took them into the kitchen, followed by the neighbor. I motioned to Roberto. He understood and followed them. The man said, "So I gather you can't speak?" I nodded and showed him my neck. He said, "Damn, that looks bad and the surgery they did on it looks substandard." I shrugged my shoulders and he continued, "I'm one of the better surgeons and would love to take a look at it if you don't mind." Gail came down the stairs as Maria, Roberto, and the woman exited the kitchen. I signed to Maria, "This man is a surgeon. Once I check him out to make sure he is who he says he is, perhaps he can work on Gail." Maria, of course, didn't translate. Instead, she said, "This is my kid's sister Gail. She can't hear or speak. That's why I sign." The man offered, "Like I told your husband, I'm a surgeon and would love to look at her problem." Gail became excited until I signed. "First, we need to check these people out to make sure they are who they say they are." I signed and Maria translated, "I travel some for my business, so my wife and daughter will be staying here. I would appreciate it if you kept an eye on them for me." The man said, "No problem, don't worry about it. And when you're back, we can have you over for a barbecue." I signed, "Where are you two from?" They volunteered, "America. And if I'm not mistaken, you are too?" I nodded my head, and they said, "Well, we need to get back to our house. We're just across the street. Let us know if you need anything." When they left, I walked into the kitchen and threw the cookies into the trash. Gail signed, "Father, why did you do that?" I gave her a dirty look and signed, "Father? When did I become your father?" She grinned and signed, "Well, that's what you told the nice couple, so I figured I would play along." I answered her question on the cookies. "We don't know who they are, and until I run a background check on them, we can't trust them." Gail complained, "Well, it's a shame to waste those cookies." I gave her an angry look and signed, "It's better than being dead." Maria came in and said, "Todd, that was strange. I've never had that happen before." I signed, "It's normal in America, but until I can have them checked out, we can't trust them." Gail pouted and signed. Father threw the cookies in the trash. Maria scolded, "Gail, he's not your father." But in a way, I realized I was her father. Present, Ben, Jens, and others. The trip. I finished with the capoeira lessons for Mira and Ira. Then Ira declares, "Sensei Blaine, capoeira feels more like dancing than a martial art." Mira adds, "Yes, Sensei Blaine. The movements are so fluid and smooth, akin to Tai Chi." I smiled at them and instruct, "I am not a sensei, so please do not call me that." Ira started, "You are incorrect. You are a sensei because..." Mira finished, "You defeated both of us." Jens walks up and asks, "So therefore, I should call both of you sensei?" The twins again divide their response with Ira starting, "Ms. Blaine, while that would be true." Mira finishes, "We do not demand that from you since your skills are adequate." Jens gets huffy, "Adequate? I'll show you adequate." And then she quickly drops back in a martial art position. Ira backs off, "Sorry, Ms. Blaine, but it will have to wait until tomorrow." Jens complains, "Why the heck is that?" Mira replies, "Ms. Blaine, we must cleanse ourselves, and then it's our reading time." Because I know Jens so well, I can tell she's flabbergasted, and she asks, "Do you always lead such a structured life?" Mira cheerily announces, "Of course, Ms. Blaine, don't you?" Jens in exasperation spouts, "Heck no." Ira makes a TSK noise and asks, "Then how do you accomplish anything throughout the day?" Jens explains her thoughts. "Instead of living by a schedule, I do whatever I feel like doing at the time, and I have enough self-discipline to ensure that I complete everything necessary." Mira scolds her, "Ms. Blaine, that is very unstructured. We are certain if you follow our example, you will realize a greater profitability in your accomplishments each day." Jens throws a fit. "There's no way I'm going to try that bovine excrement style of living. I'm not a frickin' robot." I can tell this is going to keep going, so I take Jens by the elbow and suggest something that I know she will agree with. "Jens, let Mira and Ira clean up and read. I want to head to our bedroom." Jens easily follows me. We get inside our bedroom. She begins to take off her clothes and I ask, "What are you doing?" Jen frowns and asks, "You mean you don't want that?" I laugh at Jens and reply, "My love, I almost always want that, but right now I'm still recovering from earlier this morning." Jens pouts and says, "Ben, sometimes you're just no fun." I grin at her and suggest, "Jens, There are other ways of having fun than just sex. Yin's challenges me. Oh yeah, then prove it. So I do. Afterward, she holds me and asks, Ben, how did you learn to do that? I think quickly and reply, Yins, do you really want to know the answer to that question? Yins snuggles in my arms and admits, no Ben, I really don't, because it might ruin my appreciation for a job well done. However, Yins continues with the questions by changing the subject. Ben, just when did you have time to learn Muay Thai? I laugh and answer, Destiny taught me when we were on the Rocky Mountain Trail, since we had to have something to do each night. Yins frowns and asks, Ben, just what is destiny to you? I reply, there's no reason to get concerned. Destiny is my spiritual animal helper. Yins says, but she's also a human. I explain, Yins, she is when she wants to be, but most of the time she's a wolf, which is also where she is most comfortable. Remember the wolf at our wedding? That was destiny. Yins smiles at me and says, that reminds me, I wish we had brought Sharik with us. By the way, how well did you do sparring with her in martial arts? I laugh and admit, Yins, she foresaw my every move, so she kicked my butt. She's also the one who said I would need to learn Muay Thai and the other martial art. Yins quickly catches on and slyly asks, and what is the other martial art she taught you? I grin at her and answer, perhaps I will show you tomorrow with Mira and Ira. By the way, thanks for the suggestions, you were right about both of them. Yins adds, that reminds me, I want to get a maniped from one of them. Showing my manly ignorance, I ask, what the hell is a maniped? Yins jumps out of bed. I love watching her get back into her clothes, and says, it's an easy way of saying manicure and pedicure. Now are you going to ogle me all day, or are you coming along? I reluctantly get out of bed and say, I guess I'm getting up too. Present, Stacy and Samantha. Stacy is a repeater. It doesn't take much time for the chopper to arrive in Denver. Then we run into the same problem we had last time over Denver. No place to land. The pilot finally says, we're in luck since I see a building with a heliport on it. He tries to radio for permission but doesn't get a reply, so I order, land anyway, and I will deal with any issues. We land the chopper, and thank God no one bothers us. We head toward the door to the roof, and there's one more delay. It's locked. Bill bangs on the door, but there's no answer, so finally he picks the lock. We dash inside, realize we're in a stairwell, and I ask, how many floors is this building? Bill replies, I didn't count it, but I would say at least 20. I make a quick executive decision. Screw this. I'm not running down 20 stairs. I head to the floor access door, but find it's also locked. I bang on the door, but get no answer. Bill once again has to pick the lock. We enter the hallway and are immediately surrounded by FBI agents. One of them orders, drop your weapons and hands in the air. Samantha comes to our rescue by saying, I need to get to the news story about Ben and Jennifer. If there is a story, or Liz will have my hide. The FBI agents stop us, but I recognize two of them and boldly announce, sorry sirs to interrupt your day. I'm Samantha Stevens with the Truth Network, and I'm trying to get downstairs to cover the attack on Ben and Jennifer's motorhome. One of the agents replies, good to see you again, Ms. Stevens. Let us escort you downstairs. He takes us to the elevator. We all get in and head down. The way the agent asks, is that your chopper on the roof? I smile at him and reply, yes. I'm sorry about using your helipad, but there was no place else to land. He says, no problem, I understand. Just remember, helipads are not normally open to the public. We arrive at the ground floor. The door opens. He escorts us to the front desk and orders security. This is a Truth Network news team. They have used the helipad on or roof and will return. Please call me when they return. The security guard acknowledges the agent. We run out the front door and easily find the location of the motorhome because it's still smoldering. We run up and that Arakawa woman teases, it looks like you're a little late to this story, so be nice and we might share our video with you. I've more than had my fill of this bitch. So I draw back my fist and deck the hell out of her. She lands on her, but everyone begins to cheer and then the bodyguards start to get into things. The Arakawa bitch threatens, I'm going to sue your butt off. I taunt, I doubt that. My butt is so much smaller than yours you wouldn't get anything. She jumps up and glowers. Are you saying my butt is fat? I continue with the taunts. Let me put it this way. Your butt is the size of a country and I sure as hell don't mean a small country. Arakawa takes a swing at me, but I duck and deliver a solid punch to her abdomen. She falls on her butt again and I tease, my God. Did you just feel the earthquake when her fat butt hit the ground? Samantha is busy physically fighting with the nasty KOA reporter, which has distracted everyone, so I order Bill. Please find out if they have recovered any bodies from the motorhome. Bill calmly walks over to some of the FBI agents at the scene and strikes up a conversation. I wish I could read lips, then I would have my answer. It doesn't take long until Bill walks over and says, Miss Summers, the FBI agents told me there are no bodies in the motorhome. That raises my hope, so I continue. Did they say what happened to Ben and the bitch? Bill affirms, They said that everyone escaped the motorhome right before it was destroyed. However, I don't believe them, and I don't think Ben, the bitch, and the twins were in the motorhome. My heart beats faster as I ask, Bill, where do you think they were? Bill replies, Ben's too professional and operative to be caught in this terror group's obvious trap. I think that Ben and the others pulled a switch. My guess is he's somewhere in a different vehicle. And if you remember his trip up the Rocky Mountain Trail, especially with the resources he now commands, finding him this time will even be worse. My heart slows again after I realize that Bill is correct. Then I say, at least we won't have the bitch sending us on a wild goose chase this time. Bill informs me. That reminds me, we are still getting information from their computer system, but it doesn't make any sense. I query, why doesn't it make sense? Bill says, well, we know they discovered the Trojan virus, but we keep getting updated pictures of Ben and the bitch's wedding. The technicians feel that they are trying to reverse engineer the virus. I look at Bill and order, Bill, please have the technicians flip the kill switch on the virus. Bill pulls out his phone and complies. Immediately, Miss Summers. Present, Liz, Bernie, Linus, Tom, and the others, at the cabin. I'm watching the live feed from the Truth Network, and I begin to laugh so hard that I almost pass out. Bernie asks, Liz, what's so funny? I can barely speak, but I squeak out, Samantha is in a fight with the Arakawa bitch. Bernie rushes over and lends his moral support. Way to go, Sam. Kick her butt. Samantha knocks her on the ground, then we hear Samantha practically crow. Let me put it this way. Your butt is the size of a country, and I sure as hell don't mean a small country. I double over in laughter. Bernie cautions, Liz, remember the baby. I start to feel lightheaded, and then, with Ben and Jennifer gone, I've taken some time to work on this Trojan virus Stacy and her crew put on our systems. Jennifer was correct. Every time you try to decompile the virus, it morphs into something new. I lean back in my chair, begin to think, and then come up with a possible idea. I open a port scanner on the infected box and have it scan all the ports on the system. It doesn't take long until there's a packet received on a port that's normally not used. This is the break I've been waiting for, since it has to be some sort of command to the virus. I begin to analyze the packet when the whole system goes to hell in a handbasket. Not only is the virus gone, the whole OS is gone. I pick up the phone and call Gretchen. Hey Gretchen, do we have a backup image of the infected systems? Gretchen replies, we sure do. I have it in the safe on an external hard drive. Why do you need it? I tell her about my work on the virus and how the whole OS was deleted, and Gretchen suggests, Linus, it sounds like they had some sort of failsafe in the virus that was activated. I affirm, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'll be down in a few minutes to get the disk from you. Work on the cabin is going great. Gretchen has continuous drone flights around the area to assure us the terrors don't show up again without our knowledge. The planned destruction of the motorhome went off without a hitch. Damn, it feels good to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. My phone rings. I look at the number and almost drop the phone since it's Inga. I answer and say, hello Inga, how are you doing? Inga replies, Tom, I think I would like to take you up on that offer of a cup of coffee. Damn, everything is falling into place. I reply, okay, when and where? Inga answers, Tom, how about now and here at the restaurant? I ask, is the one big bodyguard there? Inga chuckles and replies, no, they all left for Denver to cover the destruction of Ben's motorhome. I smile that my ruse worked and say, I will be over as soon as possible. I head to the garage, jump into my car, drive through the front gate, and head toward Leadville. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.